All right, welcome to today's episode of the Franchise Empire newsletter. Today is Monday, December 18th. I'm excited to talk about some of the franchises. I'm going to bring Kevin on in a minute. We're gonna talk through some of these franchises of the week, and of course, we're going to show you one resale, one new one. So before we hop into that, and I thought this would be a funny title, and it's the first time Kevin and I are going to be uh, talking about the fact that I made that as the title, but I put it as why. What is it? Why I tell people not to buy food franchises, and so I just thought that the irony in this would be funny because there's a food franchise in the newsletter that Kevin and Krista put in there, but I'm excited to talk about it. So, here's why I tell people not to buy food franchises. For starters, it's a tough business overall, and there's typically high startup costs and low profit margins. And you're open more than 360 days a year, typically 12 hours a day or longer. Now, I owned juice and smoothie bars, which is why I feel like I can speak to this in a unique manner. Um, but the irony is that estimated that 1 out of 4 franchises is actually in the food industry. It's actually what dominates uh, franchises overall is the food space. And like, let's face it, when you hear the word franchising, what pops into your head? Typically, a food brand. So either way, Kevin and the team wanted to break down a food franchise. And I thought, hey, well, regardless of what my personal experience or opinion is on the food industry, people are still going to open up food franchises and will still make money from them, regardless of how I feel about it. And at the end of the day, you know, my job and our job is to simply just kind of show you what's out there and for you to make the best educated decision on what you feel like, for your family. So to play devil's advocate, food is one of the most scalable uh businesses or industries that are out there. I mean, you hear people owning 5, 10, 15, 20 different, food franchises. I interviewed a guy on the podcast on the Franchise Empire show that has owned like 47 Dunkin' Donuts, and he's been very successful doing that. And you don't really hear of a lot of franchise owners in this home service space owning 25, 30 territories of a home service franchise. At least I really haven't heard of that. So at the end of the day, if you're going to open a food franchise, you probably need to open at least 3 of them in order for it really to make sense, which means you need to have the capital to open at least 3 of them. But let's go ahead and bring Kevin on. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good man. So what are your thoughts on my rant about not buying food franchises?
I think it's ironic that we're covering a food franchise finally in the newsletter today. But I mean, I agree with you for the most part. I come from a home services franchise background. I know a lot about home services and service based franchises in general. So I tend to gravitate towards those. I tend to recommend those to our clients. But I mean, honestly, there are some really good food franchises, and if you have a background in that type of work, if you have a passion, I mean, who's for us to say that's not what you should get into? I think it's just really important to make sure you get into a food franchise that is profitable, because as you've mentioned, there's a lot of them that are just not. I mean, frankly, it's a little scary. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I tend to gravitate towards service based, but there are some good ones out there.
Yeah, for sure. And it was interesting for me to, when I saw that you guys picked it for the newsletter, I dug into it a little bit more. And I thought there were some interesting components about it. We'll dive into it in a second, but let's get started. So today, not in 5 minutes or less here, but today we're going to talk about one specific resale franchise, one franchise of the week. We'll talk about a quick case study from one of our clients and the latest episode of the Franchise Empire show. Just really quickly, if you're watching live, would love to know like what city or state are you in. So drop a comment wherever you're watching. Let us know what city or state you're in. And if you're watching the replay, drop us a comment and let us know that you're watching the replay, because it'd be really great for us to know who's watching live, who's watching the replay, and just kind of how many views this gets after the fact. Because I know a lot of you guys can't make it live. Typically, we strive for 1 p.m. Eastern time every Monday is our target. We were running a few minutes late because of me today. Quantum Field Trips, welcome from California. Also, there's a link in the description. If you want to get these newsletters, we send them out Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern time, and you can get this newsletter and see it before we do this video. The link will be in the description if you want to sign up for it. It's completely free. All right, so Kevin, first one we got is AlphaGraphics, which is a resale. So yeah, tell us about AlphaGraphics.
Yeah, so AlphaGraphics is one of the, oldest franchises that we've worked with. They've been around since 1970, so super long track record. But essentially, what they are is a business-to-business B2B print, sign, and marketing franchise. So think of anything you could provide to small and medium-sized businesses in your area in terms of marketing. Graphics that you need for an event or for your office, all the way to digital marketing services. AlphaGraphics is kind of a one-stop shop for those services. So totally different type of business model than home services and food and typical franchise industry you'd think of. But yeah, they have 230 locations throughout the country. They've been around for a long time. Tarek, have you ever worked with this one? Are you familiar with AlphaGraphics or?
No, actually, I was not familiar before you guys popped it in the newsletter, and I started looking into them, and it's actually I'm actually pretty impressed, and I feel like I'm not easily impressed because I'm typically pretty critical at the jump.
Yeah. I wanted to throw in a different type of, just because I harp on this all the time when I start working with clients, is there's so many different types of franchises out there that you may not be thinking of. And this was one for me when I first got into franchising. But it's an interesting business. This particular resale is in New Bern, North Carolina. So it's on kind of the coastal side of North Carolina, which I heard is beautiful, by the way. I want to get there one day. But and why
Well,
it's
you could buy this and move there.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Meaning cold old Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah, it would be much better. I'm excited. We're going to Florida in your neck of the woods here in a couple weeks. So,
Are you? All right,
yeah,
we'll have to link up.
yeah, I'm gonna be down there for a couple months. So, um, anyway, so yeah, this particular business is asking price is 600,000. So what's kind of cool is this owner's been in business since 2011, which is a great run. They're retiring now. They want to pass it over to somebody else. I imagine there's a healthy book of business now that's reoccurring customers. So you really target small and medium sized businesses in your local market, which is kind of cool. And so I imagine, based on the asking price of close to 700,000, that they do have some of that reoccurring revenue. I didn't get the financials. You have to sign an NDA to get the specific financials, but from all accounts of what they said, it's a healthy EBITDA for this location. 5 employees on staff, so pretty well established. So yeah, I always like to see when people are like retiring and they just kind of want to transition out, and it's been in business for a while, especially a business that your main target is small and medium sized businesses in your area. They probably have good relationships built and everything like that. So this one, it's definitely obviously a professional services franchise. It's B2B. You're not dealing with consumers and residential homeowners. So you really probably need to be an owner that is comfortable doing B2B sales and networking, kind of being a face of the business. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't recommend this type of business for you, because it's just going to require that acumen to get out there and grow your business. But yeah, interesting one. What are your thoughts on this, Tarek, after you looked into it?
Yeah, I mean, I like it. One of the things that I saw on their website is so they've actually been vetted by the Franchise Business Review. And so Franchise Business Review, they have a really thorough process. They actually will call all of the franchisees and get their ratings, and they get all of their contact info from the franchisor. Like the franchisor has to be one to participate in it. I'm familiar because actually before we left our franchise, our franchisor participated in them, and I actually never did the review, but they called me like a million times. Um, and I've looked into it since, and their process is really thorough. And so they list on their website the score of 76. Their benchmark is 70. 91% of the AlphaGraphics owners enjoy operating their business. 89% owners feel supportive of each other, and 91% likely to recommend the brand to others. So
Wow.
I thought that was pretty impressive. Like the numbers and the data don't lie overall. I mean, there's believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there are a crap ton of franchises where the franchisees are not happy. Like there's a lot of them that are not happy and don't have good relationships with the franchisors, which is why franchisee validation is so important. So I thought that that was pretty interesting. And the fact that they've been around since 1970, I like it. I mean, we're in an interesting time in franchising where, everyone is shouting and screaming about emerging franchisors. And, there's certainly benefits to emerging franchisors, or when, there's no territories left with some of the OGs in the space. But for me, I think my personal style, if I'm being ultra conservative, right? If I'm the type of person where going in a franchise and I want to be as risk averse as possible and go into as much of a sure thing, if there ever was a sure thing, it would be this sort of concept, right? That's been around for 50 years, couple hundred franchisees, super track record, a super good, super long track record. And then, as you said, Kevin, and an asking price of 600K, that typically, without us seeing the financials because we haven't signed NDAs, that typically means that it's going to be fairly profitable because it's going to sell for a multiple of its profit. So, yeah, I think it's interesting overall. Sounds like a good opportunity. And to your point, if you're an introvert and you don't like talking to people, probably not the franchise for you. But like if you like talking to people, you like networking, you like meeting people, you don't even necessarily have to like sales or be good at sales, because like some certain businesses, it's not like you're not selling. Like when you have a belief and a passion and like the service you're providing, it doesn't feel like selling, right? So yeah, I think that's my take. I'm glad you guys picked this and put that in here. And to Kevin's other point, which is like some resales, it's like, hold on, why is this selling? Like the story doesn't quite match up, but same owner for 12 years and they're retiring. Like that's a pretty simple story. And in my experience, usually these are some of the best resales overall. When it's been one owner for 10 years plus, and then they're retiring. And they're not only quality businesses, but there's usually some opportunity for improvement too, because sometimes they may be doing stuff in a little bit of an old school way. So that's my take on it. So if you're in North Carolina or you want to relocate, um, then you can click on the link, or yeah, it's in the description, and yeah, we can get you connected to learn more about that resale. You schedule a quick call with Kevin, or if you're interested in resales overall, you want to see what's available in your area. Again, completely free. Set up a 15-minute call with Kevin and be able to take a look. And I would actually say that's one where even if it's not in your area, maybe a good option for a new type location too.
For sure.
Cool. Let's talk about client case study. So this was actually one of my first clients back when I first started, David. David's an engineer, super sharp guy, super smart, leads like a whole product team. Um, And so the reason why I threw David in here was because David bought two food businesses. So I figured it was fitting. Like I said, the irony in this newsletter will have you scratching your head. That's what I said is the first sentence. But David actually bought two non-franchise resale businesses, and for him, like he loved the idea of buying a food business, and he was super excited about it, and so um, yeah, and he was one where he actually liked the work that he was doing. He was not unfulfilled at work. He just wanted to supplement his income, and he wanted something extra, and so that was something we helped him with, which is pretty cool. All right, on to TMAD. Tell us about TMAD, Kevin.
Yeah, man, I love I love Teriyaki Madness. So I always tell people if I were to do food, I would do Teriyaki Madness. One, because the financials are phenomenal, and then two, I love Asian food. But um, Teriyaki Madness, they go by TMAD for short. They're one of I think one of, if not the fastest growing food franchises in the industry. So they've been around since 2003. They started in Vegas, but they started growing pretty rapidly starting around 2012 and have been on a pretty steep incline since then. But essentially, what it is it's almost, think of it like fast casual Asian food. It's almost a competitor to Panda Express. They say they have like higher quality food. It's all made fresh to order, so almost like a Chipotle. But a lot of their business is very streamlined. So I've been super impressed with like the systems they have in place. We've placed multiple people in this franchise. Um, the systems and support they have in place are phenomenal, and then everything is surrounded by the bottom line. So their food inventory is like they make sure that you don't have the least amount of food waste as possible, and they do that because they have a very simple menu. It's either noodles or rice based, and then you can add different proteins and sauces, but it's a very simple menu overall, and they don't try to do too much, which I love that. But the other thing I like about them, I'm kind of going out of order here, but the item 19 in the franchise disclosure document, they do show, I think it was like last time I looked, like 30 different locations broken down of a profit and loss statement, which I think is really
Oh,
cool.
interesting.
Yeah, it'll say like location A. It doesn't give you the actual specific city, but and then it'll go through all their cost of goods sold, their labor percentage, all the way down to EBITDA numbers, and it does it for 30 different locations. So
Wow.
it's pretty transparent in terms of their financials. So I like to see that. And then if you look at the summary table like we included here, the average AUV, the average performance is still pretty strong. So um, I love this business. I've heard they're really good with helping people like promote the business from a marketing standpoint, and they have like these pre-launch things where you'll get a bunch of people for opening day, and they'll have a line out the door, and it's a whole event and stuff like that. So um, the last thing I'd mention is they do say 80% of their revenue is derived outside of the four walls of the business. So what that means is smaller footprint, so smaller lease cost, and then most of their food is like their orders are takeout, delivery, Grubhub, and then or drive through. You don't have to have a drive through, but basically people are coming and taking it to go or ordering it to go. So you don't need a huge location, which keeps your costs lower. It can be in like a strip mall. And so, yeah, I like this business for food for sure. It is a lot of employees. I think they say around 20 to 25 part-time employees, are needed because you will be busy during different hours of the day. So yeah, I was kind of rambling there, but what are your initial thoughts, Tarek?
Yeah, it's solid. So funny story. And this is the first time that Kevin and I are connecting on this, but when when him and Krista put together their choices for the newsletter, I almost sent you guys a message to be like, "Come on, man, you guys know I don't want anything food related in there." And I was like, you know what? Let me be open minded. Let me be open minded. Let me take a look. So I started looking through the FDD and what you guys put, and I thought, okay, no, this I think it'd be interesting to at least have the conversation again because it's like, if people have been successful in food before, right? So, and if it wasn't for me starting a food franchise, I wouldn't be here. The reality is, and when you do look at the numbers, I mean, it is pretty interesting. I'll tell you, for these sort of businesses and for a retail based business, there's a criteria that I like to look at, which is a 2-to-1 sales to investment ratio. And so if you just average, right, their range, 300 plus 730 divided by 2 is a little bit over 500K, right? It would be an average opening. And then you start seeing some of their average gross sales based off of a good amount of number of locations. This is when I was like, all right, cool. Like this looks kind of interesting. And they're close to that 2-to-1 sales to investment ratio. Now, to be fair, I want to be devil's advocate. So people don't think I'm just like a hype man. I saw some sort of comment about that on a different YouTube channel that kind of pissed me off a little bit. Man, I got some stuff to tell you, Kevin. um Anyways, there are some criteria here, right, where they're leaving out some locations, but pretty much all franchisors do this, by the way. There's all something that they leave out, but this is just where doing your due you just anything you buy, no matter what, you got to do your due diligence, and make sure you look at and talk to other franchisees. But here's where I was like, okay, I'm willing to have a conversation around this. Is the more than 80% of sales done outside the four walls? I thought that was fascinating. And having owned a food business before, only one location that we had done some catering stuff for, man, catering is a huge opportunity. And it was just something where I never put the enough time and energy figuring out how we could do more catering business. But we'd have a catering order that would be the size of our sales for a day sometimes, or half the size of our sales for a day, which I thought was pretty interesting. So 80% of the sales coming from outside of the four walls is pretty fascinating to me overall. And yeah, that's my take on it. Anything else to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard really good things. I've heard the support is strong. I mean, we helped a guy who was a director of operations for a McDonald's owner. This guy owned like 10 McDonald's, and he was busting his ass, running these McDonald's for this owner. And he's like, I need to own my own businesses. And we placed him in this. He's crushing it. He bought 3 locations, started with 1, and has a development plan. But I mean,
Nice.
he has that experience. He looked at the numbers and then he's like, these numbers, are phenomenal. He kind of sold me on it. Um, Another person I'm helping now, the husband has a background in running kitchens. He's been a manager for a Panera location. So I think with the right background and ability to manage, like, that type of workforce, I think you can do really well if you get into the right food franchise. But a lot of them don't have the numbers. If you look at food franchise, they don't have the numbers that Teriyaki Madness, not even close.
No, yeah, it's true, because what happens is what you see in a lot of the food franchises is like their average sales are like, and when I say food, it depends on, we're really talking QSR and you're talking like some popular pizza franchises or smoothie places and juice places. A lot of them, the average sales is 500-600 grand a
Mhm.
store. So, really, if someone is going to do food, you want to see average sales of 800K plus average unit volume, AUV, because that's really where the margins can start to make sense. Because what happens is when you have a lease where you're paying 4, 5, 6 grand a month, you have that fixed cost whether you are doing 500 grand in sales or doing 800 grand in sales. So what happens is the more amount of sales you do, your margins proportionally increase significantly as you start to get towards the higher end of the range. So, and the fact that this could be operated within, what is it, a 12 to 1600 square foot spot is like, that's pretty solid overall. Like if this was okay, they do somewhere around a million, in AUV, but you're talking the average is 2,500 square feet. The numbers still aren't going to be that great because paying for 2,500 square feet is, you probably have a 10 grand a month lease. So yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm glad you put it in, at least so we could have the conversation.
All right, good.
Sweet. All right, so guys, if you're interested in TMAT or just any other franchise, you want to see what's available in your specific zip code, geography area, you can click on the link in the description below, and be able to set up a quick call so that Kevin and the team can see what's in your area. Again, completely free. And for the Franchise Empire show, this was a solo episode I did. I've been doing more solo episodes and really starting to shift uh, any very detailed, specific franchise content to the Franchise Empire Show YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed yet to the Franchise Empire Show YouTube channel, make sure to do that because there's a lot of content that I will not be putting any longer on the main Tarek Johnson channel. That's going to be more so of like entertainment, infotainment, really top level. And we're not going to go too deep in the weeds. The Franchise Empire shows are really going to get technical with a lot of franchise stuff. And so in this episode, I broke down 6 different ways that you can make money owning franchises. So it's important for you to know and kind of understand like what ownership style might be right for you in terms of semi-absentee, absentee, passive, whatever it is. And I speak through the episode from my experience of having been an owner operator, then being semi-absentee, being fully absentee. So if you want to see that episode, it's on the Franchise Emperor Show podcast channel and then any podcast platform that you listen on. So, Kevin, anything to wrap just in general that's on your mind?
I'm curious to hear about the what you were mentioning earlier about the hater on YouTube. But other than that, no, I had a couple of really good calls over the last week from our last newsletter of people that have reached out about resales, and just had one this morning before this. A woman that relocated recently and was wondering if there's any resales in her new market. So I'm gonna look for her and get back to her later this week. So if you're
Cool.
curious at all, I guess just click on the link and we're happy to have a conversation and see if it makes sense.
Awesome. Sweet. All right, y'all. Have a great week. We'll see you on the next one.